Hello, everyone. My name is Elham Fardad, and I am the CEO and founder of the charity Migrant Leaders. It is my great pleasure this evening to be interviewing Dylan Kawende. Dylan has been on our Young Leaders panel for 3 years, really since the beginnings of our charity. Welcome, Dylan. It is really, really good to see you again. The first question I have for you is, since your involvement just over 3 years ago with our charity, since the beginnings of the charity, tell me what grabbed your attention regarding the charity's mission?
Well, thank you so much for having me, Elham. I am deeply privileged to be here. And if at any point my connection becomes unstable, do forgive me. It's one of the perils of having being connected to student Wi-Fi. But back to the question, I joined Migrant Leaders as a student advisor, primarily because I'm very keen on empowering first generation and second generation migrants like myself. I'm the son of Congolese Rwandan refugees who migrated here in the 90s, and I'm very aware of the challenges that we face, in education, in accessing higher education, in getting into top professions. There are so many financial hurdles, but also psychological hurdles that need to be overcome. And I've been fortunate enough to be around people who've believed in me. I've also taken a lot of time invested in myself in being in sort of having the mindset and the competency to be successful in my education. But I know that there are so many people who haven't had the same opportunity, and being a part of Migrant Leaders has given me an opportunity to have a platform to share my experiences and also to work directly with mentees.
That's wonderful to hear. And Dylan, you have done a lot with that platform. We are really proud of the things you've achieved. 3 years have passed. You've achieved a lot. You've done a lot, as well as your education. You have done a lot more. Tell us, where are you today with your activities and what are you up to?
If I heard your question correctly, you're asking me where I am today, right? Just want to be sure I got that right.
Indeed. In the last 3 years, I have seen you do a lot of things, raise funds to study in Cambridge. You've done internships, you've been on various boards, you have launched Omnispace. A lot has happened and you've achieved a lot in 3 years. Where do you see yourself with your activities today? How does it feel to be Dylan these days?
Yes, absolutely. So it has been a journey. The last 3 years has been character building. I'll talk about my campaign in a bit of detail shortly, but just to sort of give you an overview. When I first launched back in 2019, I had no idea what the outcome would be. Of course, I had self-belief, and I hoped that I'd be able to reach my target, but I didn't realize that it would gain national attention, get featured in The Guardian and in The Times, in the BBC, and so on. But I believe that speaks to the wider concern, public concern, that there are still hurdles for individuals who come from communities like my own. And I feel very fortunate enough now to be at Cambridge studying law, having done my first degree at UCL. And I also set up Omnispace, which is an edtech company, an edtech startup with a focus on helping individuals, helping humanity thrive by empowering individuals and teams to achieve their most ambitious goals. And right now we're focused on helping individuals with their crowdfunding projects and social media campaigns, because we at Omnispace are very aware, acutely aware, that social media has a boundless potential in amplifying the voices of those who are marginalized, who are invisible. But we also have an interest in other areas like accelerated learning, leadership, productivity, and I feel very, very privileged to be able to impart some of the, the experiences and the insights that I've developed over the last decade, ever since I took up my first position of responsibility at school as the president of the debating society. And yeah, it's been amazing just connecting with fantastic individuals at UCL, at Cambridge, being a part of Migrant Leaders, and having the opportunity to just really leverage all of the connections and experiences that have made me the person that I am today. I feel a great deal of humility, and I know that I wouldn't be here without the people who've supported me to get into Cambridge. And the campaign was, it exposed a lot of issues, problems with the way our education system is set up, and I feel it's my role, my duty to do something about that.
Dylan, when I look at what you've achieved so far, UCL, Cambridge, and the additional skills and network that you've built as a result of your valuable activities over the last 3 years in particular. When I look at that, I see a trajectory, different options for your future, and a trajectory of where you could be in 5, 10, 20 years' time. But tell me, in your view, if you didn't have the opportunity, someone like you, given your background and youth, despite your talent, if you hadn't had the opportunity to go to UCL and Cambridge, what do you think trajectory for your life would have been?
Well, I think realistically, it would have been very difficult for me to have had the drive and ambition if I didn't see others who look like me in positions of influence, getting into top universities, and achieving great success in their professional lives. It's very difficult for me to say for sure, but I think in a hypothetical universe, that would have been the person I see myself being today would be a very different person. I probably wouldn't have had the same vision for my life. And I think that speaks to the importance of representation. I think it speaks to the importance of mentorship and sponsorship, and giving people the opportunity to self-actualize, to achieve their potential. I found that at school, I went to a state comprehensive school, and so statistically, it was very unlikely that someone from my school would get into a university like UCL or Cambridge. And I think the fact that teachers rely on stats to guide their decision making, some teachers, I mean, is a systemic issue, because stats can only tell you what happens in general. It can't really capture the potential of an individual. And I think if you're in a position of authority, like a teacher, it's incumbent on you to look at the person in front of you, look at the student in front of you, and have that dialogue with them. What are they telling you? And what are they telling you they want to achieve? And how can you, in your position of power, help this individual? And sometimes I got that at school, but most of the time I would get it at church. I would get that kind of support from other networks like the Amos Bursary, other communities where it was a given that you were born to be successful, that you were born to make a difference in this world.
Absolutely. And my observation really is that those who are able to help deserving young people should bear in mind how their actions and support change the life outcomes and trajectories for these amazing young people like you, and what a difference they can make both to the young person but also to that community, and to the British economy as well, because these talented young people will go on to add real value to our economy and communities. So Dylan, let me take you back to where your family are from. Your family's story and background. How has that influenced you, and how has your family's story and background contributed to who you are?
So as I said right at the start, I'm the son of Congolese Rwandan refugees, and my parents were forged on the anvil of adversity. They know what it's like for circumstances to not be in your favor and to overcome those circumstances, to defy the status quo. And that drive and resilience and ceaseless ambition, it was in many ways passed down to me and my siblings. And growing up, I'd hear the stories of how they had to overcome numerous adversities, not just the conflict in Rwanda and Congo, but also in their personal lives. Migrating into the UK, not knowing the language, and the challenges that came with that. And so growing up, I was inspired, and then hearing about my father and his and the fact that he was offered to study at Cambridge and study electrical engineering, but didn't have the funding. I felt a great need to break that cycle, and my mother has always been a great source of comfort, and she motivated me to go to church from a very young age, and having having her support me throughout the different iterations of my life, because I went through different phases. At one point I wanted to be a basketballer, another point I wanted to be a graphic designer, and she was always very, very supportive, very committed to helping me sign up for after school clubs, and having her being that enduring presence alongside my father, who'd also read to me before going to bed, and how that encouraged me to read widely and fall in love with literature. Just having that kind of support within my family was very important. And I also found that kind of love and support in other communities, like the Amos Bursary, and later on the Migrant Leaders community. And yeah, it's been absolutely essential, because there have been moments where I felt like giving up, I felt like losing heart. But having those individuals around just kept me going.
That's really good to hear. And Dylan, as you were speaking, it occurred to me that often we think of capital as something to do with how much money a family has, or how much connections and access they have to opportunities. But something that we often forget is the advantage, love, support, and work ethic that such a family can give us. And to me, that is the most important component of capital, because they made you who you are. And I do wonder how much you think being part of a migrant family, a refugee family coming from hardship and adversity, has really permanently changed who you are, your character, but also your capabilities. Do you think this has given you capabilities that you may not have otherwise had?
Could you just repeat the very last sentence?
So the question is, being part of a refugee family, migrant family, the hardships that they and yourself have gone through, has that really formed part of the character you are, and has it actually given you capabilities that you may not have otherwise had?
Absolutely. I would have to say that there are only two options when you come from a background like my own. You can either be completely despairing and fall victim to your circumstances, or you can take purposeful action. You can adapt and work incredibly hard to rise above your adversities. And those were the options available to me, to my family, and we of course chose the latter. And of course that's a choice. It's not something that's a given. There are a number of individuals who take a very different route, who, as I say, allow themselves to be victims of their circumstances. And I think, we can't ignore the role that individual choice plays. But of course, institutions can, or do, I should say, play a significant role. And there is a bit of luck involved. But I try not to start from a place of luck, because it's not really conducive to change, really. I think we have to think about the individual and the institutional role that we that is a factor in one's success.
When I think about society today, and this probably applies to many societies across the world, societies have been increasingly divided. How, in your view, Dylan, can we have a more collaborative approach so that we don't only see the differences between us, but we actually see the similarities between us and support each other and others, even if they don't resemble us?
You've answered.
So the question is, how can we do that in practice? How can we be more, in your view, more collaborative and support others who might even be different to us? How can leaders of today support people like you?
I would have to say that the emphasis on our shared humanity is something that plays such an important role, historically has played such an important role in bridging the divides between different communities. And our shared humanity is something that's indisputable. We all, even though we might come in different shapes and sizes, we all smile when we're glad, or we all frown when we're upset. And so these are shared characteristics among every human population. There are things about us that are so deeply ingrained that it is, in my opinion, rather ignorant to divide ourselves in such strict ways. And that's part of the reason why I'm so keen to have conversations with people who don't necessarily agree with my worldview, because I think once you're able to win over those individuals, or at the very least have meaningful conversations in a way that allows you to understand their worldview and find ways to integrate your different perspectives, I think that's when change is possible.
It's interesting. My experience with this is, even though I've spent 23 years as a director in GE, News Corp, Ernst & Young, but it's really with migrant leaders that I had much deeper conversations. And as you know, Dylan, today we have 600 senior mentors from more than 95 FTSE 100 and leading firms. And in order to reach that stage, I have interviewed more than 850 senior executives in the last 3 years. And something that I saw in terms of a pattern is that actually we all have a lot more in common than we realize. And that adversity and hardship comes in all shapes and forms. I've heard from people who grew up in working class families in the north of England. I heard from serial migrants who are actually white males who were originally British. I have seen ethnic minorities from both privileged and underprivileged backgrounds. I have seen and talked to so many different people, and that each one of them have experienced challenges, adversity, and therefore what unites us is our common purpose: to help those others who don't have or didn't have opportunities that we now have, and also for us to together create harmony in our communities, to share opportunities in a more equitable way, and together grow the economy and make sure that everyone benefits from that. So our common purpose is probably what brings us together. whether it is in families or in companies or in a country or even globally. So my last main question would really be about the future. What is your vision, Dylan? And I know you always have a vision about your future. What is your vision and hopes and dreams of what your future could bring for you, Dylan?
So I'd say principally I'm very interested in being an advocate in law, in court, as a barrister. And that is primarily because I believe that lawyers play a special role in bringing about positive social change. And so that's one vision, one facet of my vision for my future. I'm also very keen to continue my work in tech for good, the tech for good space. So thinking about the ethics of technological innovation and how we ensure that communities that are affected by the reach of technology aren't left behind. And I'm currently sitting on the board of TechShift, which is a non-profit tech for good organization that looks to promote student initiatives that are at the intersection of technology and social impact. And and the role of law there is very palpable, in that lawyers have are very brutal in their analysis of what is morally acceptable. And so yeah, my background in law continues to be helpful in that regard. More broadly speaking, I'm just very concerned about achieving equality, whether that be race, whether that be gender, sexual orientation, doing so in a way that doesn't incite cultural wars. I believe that there is an orthodoxy, an ascendant orthodoxy, both on the political left and right, which has caused such division, unnecessary division, and I think more needs to be done to bridge the divide and to have meaningful conversations and reasoned debate. And that's something that I'm constantly working on. I'm constantly reading books and articles to help me have the vocabulary to have these conversations, because they're so important.
It really is. And Dylan, it gives me refreshed hope. Whenever I talk to amazing young people like you, it really gives me fresh energy and hope for the future. And I realize that the job of people like me is to pass on the platform to people like you and to facilitate, support, sponsor, and give opportunities to the next generation. It's no longer about people like me. We're just here to facilitate what you guys want to do as young people, because you are the future. And Dylan, it's been an honor to speak to you, as always. And it's been an honor to be one of your many mentors over the last 3 years, and to continue to do so, and simply to watch your successes. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, Dylan, and I hope that continues. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me on. Thank you.
My pleasure.